I'm really fortunate with my heart history and the surgery that I've had, that pretty much I had the surgery and it was dealt with at least for the next 10 to 15 years. So I've got a porcine tissue valve, and we chose that valve so that I could have kids. That was definitely on the radar for us. And so that was a big decision for us medically. Did we have a porcine valve and therefore be able to have children, but then need to have more surgery in 10 to 15 years when the valve needs to be replaced? Or did I go mechanical valve and not have to have any more surgery necessarily, as much as anyone can know these things, but then having children was going to be a lot more challenging. So there were big decisions that we were weighing up along the way. James and I had lots of big conversations about what we wanted. But beyond the period of the surgery and the rehab, there haven't been huge amounts of changes that I've had to make.
I think there can be a lot of stress and pressure, and I guess it's definitely something facing me, of having to take a lot of time off work to recover and getting back into work. And I think that a really good and open, line of communication with your manager, your supervisor, is something that really has helped me if I've had to take time off. I think as well as that, I've been quite fortunate at my employer that I have services like employee assistance programs where I can talk to a counsellor and it's confidential, and that's quite a bit of a short-term fix. But I think if you've got stuff on your chest that you need to talk about, there have certainly been things in my role that have triggered emotional responses in me that wouldn't be triggered in someone who didn't have a heart condition. For me, working through that, I've been quite open about that with my employer and said, hey, this is what this made me feel. And I think just being honest about it and just being honest about your feelings with your employer. I think you'd be surprised. Most employers don't really want to make it any more difficult for you than it already is.
You can't drive for 6 months after a heart event, and then for 6 months, if you get a shock, it's another 6 months. So all up for me, it was a year that I wasn't allowed to drive. So Peter had to be the wheels of the family. It wasn't too long after it all happened, and I just got brave and said, all right, I'm going to get back into netball. I like doing that. I'm going to do that. And then that brought on the first round of shocks. So then I was too scared to walk the dog, too scared to go and get the bins down the driveway. I wouldn't be at home by myself under any circumstances. It was, my parents had to basically live with us for a while because I refused to stay at my own home by myself. And then Peter got super, super anxious and super nervous if I was home by myself. That fear of if something happens and no one's there.
The idea of Emma living with the device, that takes some getting used to and some coming to terms with. And it's something that changes over time. Like I think, Emma was very very wary and I think anxious of the defibrillator early in the piece. I think that feeling sort of changes over time, and instead of being sort of an anxiety about it being there, you actually become quite dependent on the idea of it being there, knowing that if anything happens, it's the first line of intervention that's hopefully going to save Emma from something serious.
Shifting to the anxieties of my upcoming surgery, there's plenty I'm worried about. I'm worried about a new scar. I'm worried about a pacemaker that's going to bulge out of my chest. I'm worried that something will go wrong. I guess the way I work through that is that I know that I'll, be staying with family throughout my recovery. So I'll have people around me that can at least just be there to watch TV with me so I don't get lonely. I'm going to take a bit of time off work as well, just to give myself enough time to recover from this surgery properly and not try and overdo it. I think as well, I have a really good relationship with my cardiologist and my surgeon who will be doing that surgery. So I think that puts me at a lot of ease and gives me a lot of comfort. But I think it's just going to be one of those one day at a time kind of things and working through it and breaking things down into manageable steps so that I don't feel overwhelmed and I don't have all these expectations about how I should feel and where I should feel in my recovery, and physically what I should be doing in my recovery. I've made sure that I've prepped myself mentally not to have these expectations.
I think what you need to come to terms with is your life's never going to be the same as it was before. And you've got this sort of idea in your head of what we're going to do this year, next 5 years, next 10 years, and that fundamentally changes. And you long for that idyllic,
carefree.
you long for that picture of your life you had before, and you mourn the loss of that. And that's hard to come to terms with. Even still, I think every day you sort of get used to a new life, and you have a new idyllic picture of what this new life looks like. But you get better at dealing with that all the time.